Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Global Radio and TV Live, and I am your host, Dr. Ravi. The number to call is 469 307 1642 1642. I would like to thank our viewers in the USA and also in the order of viewership in India, Canada, Morocco, Taiwan, Sudan, Japan, Ukraine, China, Korea, and Iraq. Well, if I haven't mentioned your country's name, just write us a little note. We will include you also in that list. Well, all topics here at Global Radio and TV Live are conspiracy theories or controversial topics. I'm a scientist. We would like to explore everything on a scientific basis. I know we have a lot of interesting topics. One of the most controversial one is existence of God, and that is the most controversial one I ever had to deal with. And also dealing with UFOs and aliens, JFK assassination, US debt, controversial. Conspiracy theories are involved. Two extremes from firm believers and extreme skeptics on both sides. Well, today's topic is neither controversial nor a conspiracy theory, but a fact of some people's life: domestic violence. The statistics are horrible. In the US, there are 20,000 calls each day to 911 emergency reporting domestic violence. On an average, 1 in 3 women and 1 in 4 men have experienced domestic violence in their lifetime from an intimate partner, probably their husbands, wives, girlfriends, boyfriends. Here is another statistics. 10% of all women in the US have been raped by an intimate partner in their lifetime. That's quite unusual. 10%. That is roughly 15 million women. Unbelievable. To talk about this subject matter with us today is Suzanne Perry, a survivor of domestic violence. Suzanne, welcome to Global Radio and TV Live.
Thank you, and hello, world.
Hello, world. Yes, Suzanne, tell our audience, where are you, and how did you able to survive this horrible scenario that was upon you for many years? Tell us, in brief, our audience, what you went through in your life.
Well, I started dating who would be my abuser when I was 17.
Okay.
And it was a very gradual procedure, and that is what statistics show. It's not like you go on one date and get punched. It's not like that. So
Well,
over,
I know that there went those women who went on one date and still got punched.
hopefully they walked.
They walked.
Uh,
Okay.
yeah, but this was more gradual. And I was with this person for 22 years.
Uh huh.
And I was beaten, I was raped, I was, denied access to leave the house. Outside of just going to work and coming home, I was very isolated I lost my friends, I lost my family, I almost lost my life. And, I did. I left 3 times and I came back 3 times. And statistics show the number is seven. 7 times for somebody to finally make a full break and not go back,
Uh huh.
or if they're dead. So fortunately for me, I'm still here, but it was 3 times. I left 3 times, came back 3 times, and then I married him.
Oh.
We
So
have
what is
three
the
kids.
well, yeah, let's go back to that. You said that you had before you married this person, you already had a sufficient experience of domestic abuse against you by him, correct?
Yes.
So what made you to go back and marry him? Because you felt like you cannot find anybody else. Is that some kind of a psychological scenario there?
No, it wasn't that. It was the fact that since we already had children in common, that I kept on giving the benefit of the doubt that
Okay.
he in fact changed. And he kept on trying. He would insist that he had changed and
Yes.
would work on things, and he, would swear that he would see a counselor if it ever happened again, that I would have the authority to leave if it ever happened again.
Uh huh.
So he pretty much, decorated, set the scenario up where, and I bought into it. I believed him. I wanted to believe that we could become a real family unit. And I didn't want to be a single parent. I didn't want the stigma of that, or being divorced with children. And I was afraid of that stigma. And I just tried to keep the beliefs that I wanted to stay in a marriage and stay as a whole, and that I could fix them. And that's
S-
a horrible, horrible misconception. We cannot fix somebody who is abusing us. And it usually does get worse over time. And it did for me. And so finally, after 22 years, our daughter, who was 16 at the time,
right.
she took me aside one morning and she said, Mom, I can't take living like this either anymore. It's either him or me. And she threatened to run away. And so that was my bottoming out period. That's when I knew I was in the corner and I had to make a decision, and I chose my children and I swore to them I would never return. So within 2 weeks of that conversation, the next time I was getting slapped around, and she had come home from her friend's house and asked if it was okay to call 911 yet. And I looked in the mirror and I only had a couple of scratches. And see, I was in terrible fear that if the police were called and they came and nothing happened, then I would get it worse. So I never called the police. Well, so this particular evening, I went back in for more. And until I had enough evidence on me, I finally gave her the signal, and the police came and they only held him overnight. Um, but we did start a new life, and I did not go back. And so now it's been almost 7 years, and I've learned how to bury through those or uncover those cobwebs and get through all the heaviness that being in a violent marriage instills over. It's many, many, many layers of ugliness and hatefulness and darkness.
Mm-hmm.
And you lose yourself. You lose your self-esteem, your self-worth, your self-values. And so you're at a very low level. And that's often a reason why people return too, because they're isolated. They have no social network. They have nobody to talk to who would believe them. And so we end up going back because that's the only life that we know, where it's almost like we feel welcome. And it's a very awkward scenario to try to describe.
Okay. So when you finally detached yourself from your husband, how old were your kids? Are they already 18 plus?
At the final separation, they were 18, 16, and 4.
18, 16, and 4. So did you get custody of your children?
Yes. Yeah, he didn't even try for that.
You didn't even try for it.
No.
Now, was there any abuse by him to your children?
Yeah, there was lots and lots of verbal,
Uh-huh.
occasional physical. For example, our daughter, she's the middle child, he would tell her that she was fat and
Uh-huh.
that she would never amount to anything. He told her that he would make sure she never got her driver's license and she'd never get a good job. I mean, this is our flesh and blood. I don't understand the mindset.
Of
Who
that.
doesn't want their offspring to be successful?
Yes. Oh, okay. So they were pretty young, and you got custody. Now, what is the situation now in the household? Does he do children go and see him? Is there any custodial arrangement or nothing there?
There is a visitation for our youngest only, because today they're 25 and 23 and 11.
Right.
So the youngest did have visitation. Now, when we first separated, I was terrified. I
Uh-huh.
didn't ask for child support. I didn't fight. I didn't ask for anything. I just wanted a
Out.
clean cut and let me live my life. But it wasn't so easy because I had to exchange the child with him every weekend. I did have a 5-year order of protection, so that helped. But of course, what's a sheet of paper, really?
Right.
But we did have the visitation, and finally, last year our youngest, he had a meltdown, and he says, Mom, you don't understand what's going on there. It's like he's a chronic alcoholic. He's drinking, he's passing out, he's not feeding me, he's hitting me, he's calling me names. And so finally, again, for my children, I had to stand up and decide to now go to court and ask for reduced or supervised visitation. I also finally asked for child support because I never asked for it before. And I finally learned to stand up for myself because of my child. And so now we're still in court over that, actually.
So during your marriage, you were working. Is that correct?
Yes, I had always worked full time and overtime. He was self employed. Pretty much, he could make his own schedule. If he didn't feel like working, I would call the customer and have whatever made up explanation why he didn't show up. but he would drink very heavily starting early in the morning. So when I was gone at work, he'd be ordering the kids, go get me a beer, do this, do that. I mean, it's uh, it was like a tyrant.
Yes. Now, after going through all this, I still see smile in your face. I still see that you are a happy person. How did you manage this? That's what our audience would like to know.
Well, I was always a very happy-go-lucky person,
Okay.
and I think it's like people ask me that a lot. It's like, where do you get your energy from? And I think it's just like, taking like a soda pop, maybe, or something that's really fuzzy and effervescent, and just keeping it in the dark and quiet over an extended period of time, and then finally pop that cap and boom. so, so today, I'm able to do all of the things I've ever wanted to and much, much more. Back then, anything I wanted to do became stifled. As he threw out my guitar. Anything that mattered to me was gone. It became unimportant, and then it became cumbersome, and it became useless and no good in the eyes of my husband at the time. So none of us could have our true selves and our true joy. He changed my favorite number. He changed my favorite band. It's just like he wanted me to be an extension of him.
Ah.
And I lost myself.
Okay. Now, this is something that you told me before we started the show, and you need to share that with our audience. What is the significance of October 1st?
Well, October 1st kicks off Domestic Violence Awareness Month in the United States. And so for me personally, I celebrate my life now because I had almost lost it. I can appreciate a full night's sleep. I remember I once dreamt about work, and I was talking in my sleep about work, and he punched me saying, "You should be dreaming about us." It's like, I can't help what I'm dreaming about. So I celebrate simple things that most people take for granted, like a full night's rest. And there's so much to celebrate now. And so I wear my hair is purple. You might not be able to see it, but I've been wearing my hair purple since 2010.
Well, it
That
looks
is
dark.
the color that represents domestic violence.
Uh-huh.
And so all of this month is for recognition and awareness, and there's a lot of events going on to recognize people who are impacted by domestic violence.
What are the kind of activities that are being promoted to make domestic violence awareness among all people? Are there any shows, radio, TV programs, local, you know, some sort of get-togethers, town hall meetings, any of those things?
There are, but they're very geographically limited. I don't think there's a lot of that stuff going on live stream right now. I'm doing this show in Buffalo, New York,
Okay.
October 10th for domestic violence awareness, where we have a purple event. So everybody wears purple, and we raise funds. I have a nonprofit that I created, and it's called LoveShouldn'tHurt.tv. And it's an advocacy. It's for victim empowerment and public understanding, because most people just don't understand the dynamics of domestic violence. And why did you return? And they actually kind of like lower our self-esteem by questioning, why would you stay with that? Aren't you smart? But the dynamics are so deeply rooted that it's very difficult. So we celebrate all month by wearing purple.
So are you wearing purple throughout the month of October to make domestic violence awareness? Very, very, very good. Well, here's what we are going to do now. We are going to take a short break, and we are going to listen to some other music that is quite related to domestic violence, and then take the 2-minute break, and then we will come back and continue our conversation with Suzanne Perry. I'm Dr. Ravi, and you are listening to Global Radio and TV Live. Ladies and gentlemen, we will be right back. Suzanne, please stay on the line.
How dare you come in here and talk to me that way? You've lost your mind, it's plain to see. You talk about leaving, but you always stay. 'Cause you know that you belong to me. No one would love you in every single way, the way I know that you love me. You should be thankful I let you stay. Without my love, where would you be? 'Cause nobody's better than me. Nobody's better than me. You'll be alone forever if I set you free. 'Cause nobody's better than me.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Global Radio and TV Live. And you are listening to our featured guest, Suzanne Perry. And you heard that song. You know, the song sounds pretty good, but it is all intimidation by the man trying to control the women or whoever else in their life. Suzanne, you were watching that and then you turned away. So, what was your feeling about this?
Well, I'm glad I'm not there anymore. But
Okay.
yeah, I was listening to the words, and yeah, that it's the whole feeling of entitlement. It just kind of sets in, and statistics show, for the most of it, the profiles of people who become victims are they're compassionate, they're a little on the naive side, and the people who are perpetrators oftentimes have a horrible void in their lives somewhere. So maybe they weren't given the nurturing and love that they should have had, or maybe they were bullied, or maybe they grew up with that. So it's taught. This is not something we're born with. We're not born to be violent and to try to control other people. And so like I'm a happy person by nature because that I was his cheering squad. So when he didn't feel good about himself, I was the one who was like, yeah, it's okay, and blah blah. But it all just it dried up. And so it did definitely hit a nerve, but it's okay now because I've been there, and now I'm using those negative experiences to prevent other people from falling into that horrible pit.
You know, that particular song, our radio audience were listening to it, and our video audience, TV audience were also listening to it. Now, the TV audience would have a completely different picture of what was going on. Our radio audience, if they haven't seen that graphics that are coming up, they will think that's a nice, beautiful love song. But yes, it is a beautiful love song only if you hear it. Now, if you see what was going on, I was realized that it is a total intimidation, and he was trying to control. And is this what you found in your life as well, Suzanne?
Yes, yes, but still, it's gradual, and that's key.
Ah,
Um, it's very, very. It's like peeling layers of an onion. That's what I compare it to. So first, like they peel off the layer that's your friends, and then they peel off the layer that's your family, and then they peel off the layers that are your habits, that your fun, your extracurricular activities, and then you're left feeling very bare and naked and alone, and you have nothing left that brings you that joy, and then you pretty much end up a servant to this person, and they just like suck all the happiness out of you and instill that as in the form of power in themselves.
okay. Now, when when somebody going through this, and you know very well, we talked about it a little bit earlier. This is in a U.S. United States or the North American continent does not have the monopoly on domestic violence. This is a phenomenon, as far as I know, occurs everywhere. In some other countries, some of our audience would be able to empathize with this situation, especially in certain other countries. Subjugation of women is institutionalized. They were forced to live in a way that is not given enough freedom and choice for them. And that is one part of the deal. But the other part of the deal is whatever domestic violence or abuse and other atrocities committed against either one party or another is also committed everywhere throughout the world, you know, everywhere. So our audience would really like to hear from you once they starting to experience this. What is that they need to make a determination in their mind to come out of it, and how do they go about executing step by step to relieve themselves from this atrocity?
Well, you need to have a bottoming out moment. Something has to happen when you determine, I can't take this anymore. So you're going to make a choice if you want to stay and endure that, or if you're going to take the risk of leaving and starting a new life for yourself. It's very, very scary once you become used to a way of living, even though it might be very negative. So it's a very hard thing to come to that decision. For me, it wasn't even myself, it was our daughter who made the decision for me, and
Uh-huh.
I needed to react and move forward. But for a lot of people, they have to decide it for themselves. I get parents who come to me and they say, help, my daughter's being beat or raped, what to do. And I can reach out to that daughter and I can talk to her, but that's all I can do. I can't live for her.
Right.
And so somebody needs to acknowledge, this isn't right. This is not what love is. I want better for me. And so that at that point, I would look online first and see what resources are available in your geographical location. There are thousands of groups out there, even on like Facebook and LinkedIn, all around,
Right.
that will help you virtually to recognize warning signs. I can talk about some of those too. And then once you realize this is not for me, what next? You need to have a safe exit plan. Very, very important, because that is the time that most people are killed when they first leave. That is the most dangerous time for an abused person ever.
So the safe exit plan is a very critical one. I can understand that because when you first time encounter, or the abuser encounters a scenario where they're starting to realize the person they are abusing is going to get away from them, and that probably causes all kinds of mental, not agony, but um,
Havoc.
havoc in their mind. Correct, exactly, thank you.
Right. Yeah.
And they would now sit will probably work very hard with the anger, to take a revenge against this their property, pretty much.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Yeah, it's very, very scary. Like I left 3 times and it was like fishing a line through a needle. It was your nerves are on edge. I mean, the first time I left, he was on a fishing trip, and I had it coordinated so the moving guys came and I got my stuff. We were out in probably 45 minutes. Um, but you have to have. It's very important that you have a safe exit plan. And what do I mean by that? If you have a car, make sure you have a spare set of keys that are close to you that you can take and leave. Have your important papers like your birth certificate, your social security card, your passport.
Right.
Have those in a safe location. Probably better outside of the house,
Probably if you're
locked
working, leave
somewhere.
it in the office.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Um, what? I wouldn't keep any journals laying around where they could be found,
Right.
because you really end up being monitored. So it's very, very hard to make a clean escape without being discovered. And for me, my husband told me after the third time I left and came back, he stood over me and he was pointing and poking me in the face and he was drooling and shaking and he said, if you ever leave me again, I'm going to kill your family and then I'm going to kill you. So I was scared to death. I didn't know, I thought he might be crazy enough to do it. So there I was, scared to leave and scared to stay. But you have to just, whatever your reasons for staying, you might stay for the kids. That's not good, because that teaches the kids
This is
not
okay.
love. It
Yeah.
teaches them, it gives them insecurities and horrible anxieties, which could later lead to depression, and it could even lead to suicide. Don't stay in it for the kids. It's giving them much more harm than good. And it's also showing them an incorrect balance. This isn't healthy. You want to show your children what a healthy relationship is. So leave for yourself first and leave for everybody around you second.
Okay, that brings up an important point. Um, you got into this, and this abuse was slow and gradual. Eventually, over 3 or 4 or 5 years down the road, it was a full-blown abuse against you. Now, is it possible that people get attracted towards men because of certain other factors in the early part of their childhood? Where you have any childhood abuse problem in your own life?
No, I had zero.
Zero.
Um, Yeah, none. My parents didn't drink. They were not risk takers. There was no abuse in my household. Um,
That's an important point because many times it has been shown that um, the abused party usually had previously encountered abuse in their own childhood in their own homes. At
yeah,
most 60, 70, 80% of such cases. Now you are an exception to this rule that you are saying that your parents were loving and taking care of you very well.
yeah. They were very nurturing and very kind, and yeah, there was no abuse in my
So
household growing up.
if that is the case, to me it is a little difficult to figure out why you would even end up with this particular man, and not only that but continue with the abuse because you don't have a previous example of acceptance of abuse in your own childhood or in your own family, but you accepted it because of what reason?
I believe outside of the home from being picked on. I was picked on when I was growing up. People
That
didn't know how to categorize me because I was funny looking, you know, like I have an olive skin tone and I've got curly hair and and uh, I'm a Caucasian person, but I don't look like it. So I guess people think I'm a mix. So all my life, people have been trying to say, you know, what are you? Are you Puerto Rican? Are you Filipino? Are you, you know, Hispanic? And for some reason, they were segregating me for that. And oftentimes I would get picked on for it. People, you know, would call me some pretty nasty names, and I'd go home crying. And so I believe that was the point of entry for my
so
abuser.
okay, so now I'm trying to get the picture now. In the in the household you were fine, but as soon as you walked out, because you were looking slightly different from others, the the classmates, students in the college and high school started picking on you. Now,
Yeah,
where exactly? Tell our audience exactly where it started. How old were you when you start noticing people were picking on you?
5.
5. Oh
Yeah,
wow! So
5 years old.
I
I was
was
riding my
expecting
bicycle
13.
up the street, and big bullies at the end of the street called me some names, and I went running home crying. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, I'll never forget it. And then, you know, later in life, there some of the people I tried to have a relation or I dated. I mean, one I tried to date, and he said, "Oh, you're my little, you know, the N word. I don't know if I could say it."
mhm.
And
Yeah, you can say it in this program. But
they
anyway, go
said,
ahead.
"Yeah."
No, in this program there is no language barrier, no language limitations. Anyway.
Okay, and that was it. People would call me a nigger,
Hmm.
and it just broke my heart. I mean, I'm not black, but even if I were, I don't need to be
Well,
called any other names.
anybody should not be called by any words, no matter what,
Yeah,
and especially such a derogatory term usually not only affects your mind, it also affects your soul, and that has a long-lasting effect on it. So your problem started not in the household, but it started outside.
right. Yeah.
So
And
so
so I wouldn't get picked a lot of times for, you know, the dating, whatever they do, like when roller skating, the boys line up on one wall, the girls line up on the other. So I wouldn't get selected. A lot of times I was the last one picked. And you know, I didn't fit into any of the school cliques. I always had one or two best friends who, you know, they didn't care what anyone said. So I had healthy relationships and they were small, and I think that's good. But I do believe that was the point of entry for my abuser. That's exactly where he came in, where my weak spot was. So he came swooping in, full of charm,
hmm
saying how, you know, beautiful I am and all these wonderful things. And I revealed to him my weakness. And later, after he had his hooks into me, that's when he would throw it all back at me. Nobody would ever want you. Nobody would ever want a nigger in their neighborhood. Oh, they don't want you, and all these horrible things where it would make me feel like I couldn't survive on my own without him, which was never the case, but you know, it was always in the back of my mind. But obviously, clearly, I'm able to survive and thrive on my own. It's been almost 7 years now, and life is fantastic. My life rocks today. My fear of him is finally gone, although that fear took 6 years before it was really all the way gone. And this is a great thing. In court last year, we had to stand next to each other to wait for an elevator, and my heart was jumping out of my chest. I was scared, and I just hoped you didn't say anything.
Okay, hold on. Just hold that thought
Yes.
because we want to put our audience in suspense. We're going to take a quick break, 2 minute break, and then you are going to come back and tell me what happened in that elevator with your ex-husband. All right.
Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, you are listening to Global Radio and TV Live, and I am your host, Dr. Ravi. The number to call 469-307-1642. We are also talking to our featured guest is Suzanne Perry, and we will be right back. Suzanne, please stay on the line.
Okay.
Bed of roses, sink me in the river at dawn. Send me away with the words of a love song. Oh, oh, oh. Lord, make me a rainbow. I'll shine down on my mother. She'll know I'm safe with you when she stands under my colors. Oh, and life ain't always what you think it ought to be. No, ain't even gray, but she buries her baby. The sharp knife of a short life. Well, I've had just enough time. If I die young, bury me in satin, lay me down on a bed of roses, sink me in the river at dawn. Send me away with the words of a love song. The sharp knife of a short life. Oh, well, I've had just enough time, and I'll be wearing white when I come into your kingdom. I'm as green as the ring on my little cold finger. I've never known the loving of a man, but it sure felt nice when he was holding my hand. There's a boy here in town says he'll love me forever. Who would have thought forever could be severed by the sharp knife of a short life? Oh, well, I've had just enough time.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Global Radio and TV Live. I am your host, Dr. Ravi. You are listening to our featured guest is Suzanne Perry. On domestic violence, we saw some of the horrible pictures there, and this is the Domestic Violence Awareness Month, October 2014. Suzanne, welcome back to our third segment.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, now here is the deal. We before the break, we were talking about you left alone with your husband in an elevator,
In
and then
court.
in
In the
court.
court waiting
So
room,
tell
yeah.
us exactly what happened.
Yeah, and there was nobody else around, and I was almost in panic. And he said, he was a little bit behind me, and he said these words: I seen pictures of you on the internet with other men. I have those pictures. And the elevator door opened up, and I got in, and he didn't get in. And at that moment, I just felt the weight of the world come off. I was like, whoosh, is that it? Really? Now, the reason why that's okay is because I work in promotions.
Okay.
So, yeah, there's pictures of me all over online with other men on purpose.
Yes.
This is what I do. I'm very, very conscious of what I do, and I wouldn't do anything that I wouldn't want my own kids to see. So because of all that, that's what made it okay. And at that moment, I took my power back. I was like, I got this. And that was it. My fear floated away.
Oh, see, that's amazing because there is always a moment in anybody's life when they are suffering from so much problem and helplessness in their lives. Suddenly, that particular moment comes in where everything disappears in a puff of cloud. So that's wonderful. Now, let's while we were talking, while the song was going on, I saw there was a little boy that came into your office. Who is it?
That's our youngest. He was
All right,
home with
ask
the
him to
flu.
come on. Ask him to come to the come on in. Let's talk to
Oh,
him.
Joey, you want to be seen on camera? Come here.
Yes. Well, this is a family show, so that's okay. Hi, Joey. How are you?
Hi.
All right. So this is your 11-year-old now?
Yes.
Okay. So how are you doing, Joey? Are you where is school? You are not in school.
I was sick today.
Oh, okay. All right. So mommy is taking care of you.
Yeah.
Very good. Very good. See, this is wonderful because I always have somebody else who come on the show and talk about what's going on over there. Which grade are you?
Wait, what?
What grade are you in?
Oh, I'm in sixth.
Sixth grade. Okay. So I have my son. He is on seventh grade. He's 12 years old. So that's interesting. Where do you live, by the way? You are in Virginia, someplace. Where is
We're
it?
in Buffalo, New York.
Buffalo, New York.
Yeah.
You know, I used to live in Albany, New York, for about 18 winters.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Well, that was when I was running my business up there. But anyway, Joey, nice talking to you.
You too.
All right, you take care.
Yeah.
All right, good. So you see, this is what I like the most in our show. We have, guests coming in, and then there are surprises like this. Another question I want to ask you, Suzanne, is what are those pictures behind you? Tell our audience what they are. There is a bunch of frames and stuff behind you on the wall.
Yeah, let's see, when I first started to go out public, not even talking about domestic violence, I was very interested in the music scene. And so I went out and I started taking photos of local bands and following different bands in different places. And and then I started a company called Hot Jam Media. And so I would feature these bands in this, like a blog or kind of like an online magazine. And what else do I have back there? Oh my goodness, that was the first publication that I was in, and it was called Women in Business. And they featured me because I spoke out against domestic violence, stood my ground, and I'm not afraid to talk about it. So they featured me in my business. And then this one there, that was a publication from this year. I put on this great big concert every year. It's called the Exposure Concert because love shouldn't hurt. And this is the 5th year that I've put it on. It's a 3-day, 2-stage event that I put on every year, and we live stream it around the world. And it's to unite, to expose domestic violence. And it's my signature event. It excites me very much. And we chat with people from all around the world. And so I've been recognized pretty widely for that. And a couple of those are publications of that. And then I also attend the NAMM show in Anaheim, California, which is the National Association of Music Merchants. And just today, I got my invitation for my media credentials. So I'm so excited. So that's how I get to go and I interview rock stars. And then when I do that, I have these wristbands here. And they say love shouldn't hurt. And I bring them with me to the NAMM show. And then I get pictures of the rock stars wearing the wristband. So I have like the guitarist Orianthi. I have drummer Sheila E. And I've met these wonderful people in the music industry. And I'm sharing my message on a huge scale. So it's just, this is why I'm so happy. I have all the energy given back to me, and helping other people to find their voice just keeps it going.
Okay. What kind of music do you like? Are there any specific genre, or you like all of it? What is your favorite?
I like rock and roll. I like alternative. I love jazz. I like blues. I even like some gospel. I like a little bit of everything. I like the oldies. I like the classic. I like most music.
Now, who is Daniel Adair? Who is he?
Daniel Adair is the drummer from Nickelback. And I was
Okay.
able to interview him in the Regal Tip booth at the
Okay.
NAMM show.
Ah, well, that's interesting because we were able to find a interview of you with him, and let's see if we can play this. Just a
Awesome.
second.
Questions. What is your biggest accomplishment?
One of my biggest accomplishments,
Yeah, to date.
I think I've won the lottery twice by getting the 3 doors down and then getting a Nickelback. So just that in itself is I was on cloud 9 each time that happens.
Okay, and what's on your bucket list for the future? You have to have some kind of a goal, like a long-term goal, or have you reached everything you've ever wanted?
Well, there's always more, right? I have a home studio and I've been doing a lot of albums for people, and I just want to keep that going. I'd like to be the guy that people call, and I just want
like if you're not touring?
What's that?
How often do you practice if you're not touring?
I do. Probably 4 or 5 days a week, like an hour or two at a time. You can't practice as long as you used to when you have kids.
Right? Yeah.
So there it is, ladies and gentlemen. There is an interview of Daniel Adair by Suzanne Perry. So you go to all these different shows, and then you go ahead and interview these candidates, and then what happens? You post them on your website.
Yeah, I publish them. I have a online magazine that I started. It's called Hot Jam Media Mag, although I kind of dropped the ball since February, so I'm going to pick it up again.
Okay.
I'm just doing so many things and covering so much ground, it's hard to stay on top of it all. But this is where they go. So there's an online website. It's hotjammedia.com, and there's links there to those interviews where you can see most of them. There's more that are on YouTube that I haven't linked yet.
Oh, the Art Jam Media is a website that you created, and people can go in there and listen to many of the things you have done. The other one that I wanted to ask you is loveshouldn't.hurt.tv. What is that exactly?
Yeah, that is, it's a non-for-profit corporation that I founded. Actually, I started it in 2010, but I called it OP Music House, which nobody understood what the heck it was. So I've rebranded, and actually it stays in alignment with myself and my journey, because OP Music House was promoting music. And then once I had people where I wanted them, I would share my story of being a former victim of domestic violence, which is a sneaky way of advertising, but it was very effective.
Okay.
But now I need people to know that I am talking about domestic violence first and then the music. And that is why I rebranded, and now it's called loveshouldn'thurt.tv. And what it is I do public speaking events, I do workshops, I do one-on-one mentoring, I do the exposure concert, and we put on events where we reach out to the public and help answer questions. We guide people, we mentor people. It's for victim empowerment and public understanding. That's what we do.
Okay. The other thing that you do, you said that you are representing top-notch brands such as L'Oreal, Gallo Wines and Spirits, Danone Yogurt, and Samsung Galaxy.
It's another one of my
Exactly
jobs.
what you do. Yeah, we would like to know what is that you do with those brand
Yeah,
companies.
I'm a professional brand ambassador, and so I love that kind of work too. So I might be in a liquor store pouring samples of something, or I might be in Home Depot demonstrating insulation. So stuff like that. I do product demonstrations. I guess it's assisted sales. It's so much fun though, getting access to top-notch products and getting to use them, play with them, and then talk about them. So that increases the manufacturer's bottom line, and it helps me to look good too.
You know, on the four things that you mentioned there, the one I like the most is the Danone yogurt. I buy it. I buy it every day. I like yogurt.
It's very good.
Yeah, Samsung Galaxy is a very good phone. No question about it. The other two, of course, the L'Oreal is for the female cosmetic company. So that's good. And the last one, Gallo Wines. So what do? You just go ahead and drink all the wines?
No, I'm not allowed to do that.
Okay, then what do you do exactly?
I offer samples of the certain product. The Gallo family have New Amsterdam gin and vodka. They have Camarena tequila. So it's not just wines. It's a whole family of products that are under their umbrella. So they'll send out store locations, and I'll just go and demonstrate the product. I offer free samples of the product. So I hand out smiles. It's awesome.
Oh, okay. You also you are also a volunteer as a mentor for verbal abuse journals. Exactly what is that?
That is an online resource started by another survivor, Kelly Jo, and I had to fill out some paperwork and go through a procedure, but I mentor people through that group. So any survivor or just somebody who's got a question about the relationship, they post questions. Kelly pairs them up with a mentor, and so then if they come to me, then I'll support that person and answer their questions and guide them.
Okay. There is going back to your Hot Jam Media, we were able to pull one of this other video out. This is with a person by the name of Randy Cook. Who is Randy Cook?
Randy Cook is the drummer for Smash Mouth
Okay.
and several other bands. It's an alternative band. He's a Canadian rocker with a great personality.
Oh, okay, good. So let's see if we can listen to some of that interview. There you go. Here it comes, ladies and gentlemen.
All right, 2013 NAMM. It's Saturday here, and we're here with Randy Cook, the drummer of Smash Mouth. Wow, badass. All right, so you love Buffalo, I hear.
I do. I grew up in Toronto, Canada, and I remember hanging speaker wires out my window to get WBLK. Was the only funk station that I could hear because I was in an all-black reggae punk band.
Wow. Oh my God.
So good. Buffalo. I love Buffalo so much.
I love Toronto too.
Yeah.
Awesome. What to date is your greatest accomplishment?
I have about 2 or 3, but one of them would be playing with Ringo Starr.
Oh yeah.
I did about 4 months with him a couple of years back. Got to play double drummers.
Wow.
So Randy Cook wants to play with the Ringo Starr. So that'll be an accomplishment by itself. So it looks like you are now free as a bird. Now, here is another important question I want to ask you, and our audience would like to know. You have gone through 22 years of hard life, and naturally nobody wants to be alone after all that. They want to go ahead and have some kind of a relationship with somebody else. Now, I have 2 questions on this. Number 1, do you really want to be in another relationship? If so, how are you going to protect yourself from similar fate occurring again?
Okay. I'm not actively pursuing a relationship at this moment. A few years back, I entertained the thought, and somebody who I did start dating, his former girlfriend showed up 7 months pregnant and said it might be his. So that kind of gave me cold feet real quick.
Okay.
That was pretty much it. So I just stay on the sidelines at this moment. But since then, it was a good thing because I really wasn't ready yet. There was a lot of more soul searching I needed to do, a lot more self-discovery, self-expansion, training in what I want to do and where I'm going, more investment in my family, reconnecting with my children. So it wasn't time for me to date yet. So I'm very comfortable with that. And now with all the different companies and the different businesses that I do, I really don't have spare time to dedicate to somebody else. So for those reasons, I'm not looking. And the second part of your question is because I have mentored hundreds of people pretty much globally, the different scenarios that I listen very closely when I hear a case and recommend advice. The different ways that abusers seep into the lives of those who become abused. I've become far more aware of all of the red flags. So, and even when I'm out in public, I can pretty much pick out people who are like that. So my sensors have been pretty more fine-tuned.
Really? Well, that's an interesting point. There was an interview that I was watching, Morgan Freeman, the famous Hollywood actor, and they asked him. He was not in a relationship. He got divorced from his wife. This was about a couple of years back. So they asked him, "Are you not afraid of being alone and dying alone?" So he answered, "Well, nobody. I mean, everybody dies alone. Nobody is taking somebody else along with them unless they are terrorists." So, in other words, I can understand where you are coming from because you don't have to have somebody in your life to be feeling alone. You can still have your children, family, everybody else, and you are very careful not to get into another relationship and go through all kinds of problems, and you already know what the red flags are. Now, our audience would like to know at least 3 of these red flags that they should be also watching for. Do you have any idea whether you can give some pointers as to what red flags they should be looking at?
Yes. Cruelty to animals, children, or elderly. If there's mistreatment of people who are vulnerable, that's a tremendous, huge red flag. Do not engage. If there is extreme jealousy,
Ah,
That's another major indicator. If you feel like your partner is constantly over your shoulder,
yes.
if they're checking your phone and your Facebook more than you are, if they're showing signs of mistrust like that,
Right.
bad indicator. Another indicator of somebody who's potentially abusive,
Not.
your gut. You got to trust your gut. If something doesn't feel right, don't just let it go. And here's another one, I guess. Don't think you can fix somebody. So if somebody
Ah,
is showing you signs of real insecurity and they're very clingy to you, don't take on that mother approach thinking that you
right.
can fix them. That's not somebody you want to engage with. And then I'll tell you, a healthy relationship is one in which it's a mutually loving and nurturing relationship, never one that you should be afraid of your partner. I remember telling my husband, I'm afraid to be alone with you. I remember when I was pregnant with our first child and I had to move out of my home, I was terrified, terrified. So all the red flags were there. I just kind of wish I had somebody with wisdom to say, I understand you're pregnant and you don't want to move out with them. Maybe you shouldn't.
Hmm.
But I felt, I felt owned. I mean, he told me and he said, I think all women should be beaten. And he said when OJ killed Nicole, he said she deserved it. And he was raised with paternal alcoholism and abuse. So he came from a cycle of this. And
Ah.
I came, fresh and innocent and naive. And that's how those two things twisted together.
So you are saying that if they are cruel to animal elders or children, you have to be careful. And
People
this
who are less vulnerable and
less vulnerable,
animals as well. Yep.
right? And you are saying that if you are overly jealous and checking your Facebook more than you check your own Facebook, then you have a very big red flag. So that's a
Yes.
very good point. The third one is that's very very true, Suzanne, that you cannot fix others. You are not there to take care of other people's psychological problems. You cannot treat them, you cannot fix them, you cannot cure them. So that's very important. I looking back at many of the relationships that all my even myself and other friends have gone through. We always try to say, okay, let's see that we can fix her or his problem. Maybe I will. This is my life's goal. It won't work. They better go to a psychiatrist, or they better go to Alcoholic Anonymous or something. And you are not there to fix their problem. You cannot fix their problem unless they fix it themselves.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now coming back to is it something that you did? So your son Joey there, he's there. Let's talk about him a little bit. How do you make sure when you are in a relationship like this and your children may have witnessed some of the abuse? How do you protect them from the scars that may have already been there? How do you make sure that you going forward, your your children don't reproduce what their parents did? This is a cycle of violence that always continues. How do you break the cycle of violence?
Yeah. That's tough. For my situation, I would have recommended that my daughter have counseling, and she never did. But because we were very dysfunctional, when the break from my husband was first made, and we all slept for 2 weeks, that is post traumatic stress disorder.
Uh-huh.
Needing to reconnect with my own children. See, my children didn't know who I was. I didn't have a regular maternal relationship with my children. We were all treated like slaves. I was never allowed to be alone with them, so they could never tell me how hard their father was being with them during the day when I was at work. So it was a huge overtaking to even let them know who I was. I was so anxious to show them that I am full of love and compassion, but I think all they saw me was a doormat. So anytime I stood up for them, then I would get beaten.
You're
So
pushed
none
down.
of us could stand up for each other. So going forward, I'm very fortunate. Our oldest son, who is now 25, he started working out when he was 15 because he wanted to kick his father's ass. But fortunately, he's not an aggressive person, my oldest son. And he's calm and he's laid back. And now he helps people. He is a bodybuilder, all natural. He detests, abhors alcohol and cigarettes. And he never would because that's what he grew up seeing, a drunken dad. And he said, to our son, no, you'll never get any bigger. You're wasting your time. Well, in your face, because he's a state record holder now and he's doing wonderful things. He's doing very well for himself. He's ready to buy his first house. He has
Nice.
a Corvette. He's got a new motorcycle, and he doesn't have a mean bone in his body. So he's very successful. Um, our daughter, she's in the middle. She's fending for herself, and she wants to travel the country. So I support her. Our youngest, now when we got out, he was 4. So he's had the greatest ability to recover. Going through 5 years of having to go through visitations with his father, though, was damaging, especially when I was not helping him. I was not listening to him. When he said, I don't want to go, I said, you have to, or I'm going to get in trouble with the courts. So it's only been a little over a year since I went to court, stood up for him, and now everything is blooming and it's the right way and it's proper. So now I have a very healthy relationship with my children. So I trust that my oldest son is going to be okay. I think my daughter's going to be okay. And I'm pretty sure that my youngest is going to be okay.
Excellent. So you have really worked very hard to make sure your children are not going through the same cycle of violence and other problems going forward with their lives. That's very critical. Um, Looking back at your life, what is one big advice you will give our audience in terms of who they should select? One advice, eh? I'm sorry, go ahead.
I would say trust your gut.
Trust your guts.
Yeah,
Trust
that
your
intuition. So often we just don't pay attention and we find reasons or ways to talk ourselves out of listening to our intuition. And that was my biggest mistake because I am a very intuitive person and I knew better. But then I had actually felt stuck. I felt like there was no way that I could safely get out. And I did ask for help from his family, thinking if I go to the source, that they would help. I was 7 months pregnant with our second born. My husband came home. He took my car, took my paycheck, went to a strip bar, blew all my money, came home drunk, beat me badly, and I was 7 months pregnant. I took our first child and I walked at 3 a.m. to his parents' house and knocked on the door and I said, this is what your son did to me. I tried very hard to get help, but nobody was able to do anything that really helped. The only thing that happened is they checked on me at a later time, said, is everything okay? But I have to lie and say it is because he's standing right over me. So I'm right back into, the crimes again.
Wow. So one advice you are telling everybody is trust your guts or gut feelings. As a matter of fact, intuition. As a matter of fact, you are very much correct on that because, even in my personal life, I got married, which eventually ended up in a divorce. Very early on, I realized that marriage is not going to go anywhere. But I continued with it because of many other factors that come into play. You feel like you are getting old, or you feel that you are not going to have any more child, or nobody's going to love you, and hey, this is it, and nothing else. And well, whatever you get, what you take, you can take whatever you get. So those are all the things that are going in your head, and that ultimately you end up marrying the wrong person, and then of course you have to end up paying for it.
Right.
So very, very fascinating conversation today, Suzanne. So thank you so much for joining us. Suzanne, if any of our audience would like to meet you and would like to contact you, what is the best way to go to your website, or how do they, suppose they want to say they are in an abusive relationship, they want to talk to you about their problem, how do they contact you?
I am a Facebook junkie, so I am on Facebook at Suzanne Perry 7.
Okay.
And LinkedIn is the same. You can go to my website, which is suzanne-perry.com. Loveshouldhurt.tv. If you Google Suzanne Perry domestic violence, my work will fill your screen. So
okay.
I'm very, very public. I'm very easy to find. I'm responsive to all emails, and I intend on a small speaking tour in the second half of 2015. So I welcome any invitations to come and do a presentation, workshops, anything that I could reach lots of people to help them recognize signs before it's too late.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, you are listening to Suzanne Perry, and she is domestic violence survivor, and she has a lot of other activities. She is willing to talk to anyone who wants to get some ideas about how to get out of any kind of violence or abuse you may be in your own life. You can reach her at www.suzanne-perry.com, or you can go to loveshouldn'thurt.tv, and you just have to Google her by just typing her name and then followed it by Suzanne Perry Domestic Violence, and you will have a lot of information. Suzanne, thank you so much for joining us today.
It's been my pleasure and my honor. Thank you so very much.
And
Remember, love shouldn't hurt.
love shouldn't hurt. Ladies and gentlemen, that's the final word for today. Love shouldn't hurt. Ladies and gentlemen, we will be right back. And Suzanne, please stay on the line for a couple of more minutes.
Okay.